It's you.
What is up, you guys? This is All Day Any Day 1 on the PS4, and I'm going to be giving you a rating for Spider-Man. So this rating is going to be 1 out of 100, and I'm going to score him in 10 different areas. So the damage output, survivability, versatility, AOE effectiveness, single target effectiveness, resource consumption, crowd control effectiveness, trials, farming effectiveness, and support effectiveness, and then his total score. So in his damage output, which is his general damage, basically like his base damage without anything on, I gave him a 90. It's basically the damage output is basically your TTK, aka your time to kill. So I gave him a 90 on that. He has really nice damage output, and he doesn't really need to be super geared out to put out the nice the nice damage either. He has a lot of really nice AOE burst damage and single target damage over time, burst damage, etc., etc. So he's definitely a strong character to play. And then his survivability, I gave him a 95. The reason why I gave him a 95 is because, one, he's an agile character. He moves around a lot, so that helps one right there. And the next thing is he has 3 abilities that give him a guaranteed dodge, which means he has 100% dodge, meaning he cannot take any damage except from a few things like caltrops or fire. But other than that, he or any traps he can take damage from while he's in not taunt, dodge. But from any abilities or anything from enemies, he will not take any damage from. It'll negate 100% of the damage for the duration, and yeah, that's why I gave him a nice 95. The reason why I didn't give him 100 is because he doesn't have any abilities that technically give him any healing. Other than that, he would have definitely gotten 100 if he can heal himself. But he can deflect abilities, and he can deflect projectiles, and he can also dodge as well. So the next thing I gave him was a 90 in versatility. The reason why I gave him a 90 in versatility is because you can play him a tank, you can play him jumping spider, you can play him range webbing spider. You can do so much with him, which is why I gave him a 90. Some things are not as strong as the jumping spider build, but they are still close to DPS, which is why I count those as, that's why I counted it for him. And then for his AOE effectiveness, I gave him a 90. The reason why I gave him a 90 is in his AOE effectiveness is he has a couple abilities that are long-ranged AOE abilities. He has a lot that are mid-ranged and a lot at short range. But yeah, he not just that, but he has the capability of applying damage over time and high burst damage with his AOEs. So his AOEs can put out nice damage. His single target effectiveness, he got an 85 on that. The reason why he got an 85 in his single target effectiveness is because his single target isn't the best. It isn't all the way up there with some of the stronger characters. But like I said, he does have a pretty versatile, he's pretty versatile with his AoE and his single target. His AoE damage does enough damage to single targets in general. So that way, that's why he got a nice 85 on that. And his single target just isn't too bad, his single target abilities. So his resource consumption, I gave him an 85 on that. The reason why he got an 85 is because not too many people that I know of never really ran into webbing problems, his resources, but there are a handful of people who still do run out of webbing and have to spec into putting more webbing on him or her if you're using Spider-Gwen. But yeah, that's why I gave him an 85 on resource consumption, is because of the fact that there are people that do run out of webbing, and I can understand how you run out of webbing because you might be going a complete webbing build. So if you're going with a complete webbing build, then yeah, it's gonna be a problem for you. So his crowd control effectiveness, I gave him an 85. The reason why I gave him an 85 in his crowd control effectiveness is because He has abilities that can interrupt enemies. He has abilities that can immobilize, abilities that can pull, or one ability that can pull enemies. You know, he has a lot of pretty nice abilities, but that's, well, not necessarily a lot. He has maybe 4 abilities. Let me check really quick, actually. So he has, I think this one is, yeah, so this one will just knock your enemies up in the air, so I wouldn't really count this as crowd control. So yeah, I guess taunt does count as crowd control. And then what is really nice about this is it makes you invulnerable to all damage. Basically, it basically gives you your dodge. So that's one. This one knocks your enemies back, and then you have, so that's 2. You have Amazing Smash, which is your signature, which pulls your enemies and immobilizes them. And then that's 3. So the next one would be, I suppose, slowing your enemies would also be considered crowd control, because you're slowing their attack speed and movement speed by 50%. So that's a lot of movement and attack speed being reduced. So those 2 can count, or would count. And then the last one would be Stick Around, which immobilizes and it'll cancel, interrupt your enemies as well. So when you interrupt your enemies, then you know, you're basically giving your team an opening slot. So for example, someone like Juggernaut, if he's about to rush, or someone like Doctor Doom, if he shoots his beams, you use Stick Around, then he'll cancel. You basically interrupt his beam. So this is definitely a really good one to have. As well as Taunt. Having a Taunt will interrupt them as well. So I gave him an 85. Actually, I gave him a 90. I'm going to give him a 90 on his crowd control effectiveness. So the next thing was his trials. I gave him crowd control effectiveness was a 90. Yeah. So his trials, I gave him a 90 on that. So the reason why I gave him a 90 on his trials is because his trials isn't too hard. Especially if you're using a movement build. If you're using your movement build and you're running around, not running around, but you know, hopping around and whatnot, you're gonna be able to pass it. If you're running a full tank build, you're gonna be able to pass it. So if you're running a webbing build, maybe not. I'm not 100% sure, since I've never actually ran a webbing build in trials. It probably will be a bit tedious if you're using a webbing build, just because of the fact that you're running out of webbing consistently. But yeah, I mean, his trials wasn't too hard for myself. It was, I guess, I have a friend who did spend about 2 weeks trying to complete Spider-Man's trials, so that is another thing as well. But it also does come down to stats too. So having really low base damage is going to hurt you in the long run, because you won't put out enough damage to beat the trials. And then the next thing would be his farming effectiveness. His farming effectiveness, I gave him an 80. The reason why I gave him an 80 is because he generally cannot farm solo fast enough in under, I would say, in under 5 minutes or 6 minutes on treasure purification to get all 250 kills plus the boss kill. He can probably complete it in about 8 minutes at the most, and that's without any gear. With the gear, or the correct gear, the ones that has the right stats and whatnot, he can definitely complete treasure purification in about 5 minutes or less. So that's what I mean for farming effectiveness. You're farming for better gear, farming for artifacts, and it's for solo. So if you can't solo fast enough, then, or if that character cannot solo fast enough, then they're not going to be rated high. The last one would be support effectiveness. The support effectiveness, I gave him an 85. The reason why I gave him an 85 is because he does have nice crowd control abilities, which is a bonus. He can play tank, which is really good support. But other than that, he doesn't have anything that can buff a team. So he doesn't have any damage buffs. He doesn't have any heals. He doesn't have any strengthens, or really any type of enemy deep. Well, I suppose enemy debuffs would be his immobilize, so his crowd controls. But yeah, other than that, he doesn't have any team buffs, so that kind of hurts him in the support area. And then his total score came up to a total of 88. So with his damage output, I'm just going to recap on everything. He got a 90 on damage output, 95 on survivability, 90 in versatility, 90 in AOE effectiveness, 85 on single target effectiveness, 85 on resource consumption, 90 on crowd control effectiveness, 90 on trials, 80 on farming effectiveness, 85 on support effectiveness, and 88 in total. So if this video helped you at all, go ahead and leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions or concerns, let me know down in the comment section. If you want to see anyone else being rated, then let me know who you would love to see or like to see, with my opinion of them being rated. So keep in mind, characters that are rated high doesn't mean they're the best characters. Characters that are rated low doesn't make them the worst characters most of the time. It really comes down to preference, and it comes down to specific things. For example, Blade was given like a rank 89, a rating of 89, but his single target damage came out to be the best. And someone like Scarlet Witch was rated like 86, and her AOE and trash mob clearing basically is her farming effectiveness is the highest so far in the game. So other than that, I mean, it really depends on what you're looking for in the game and whatnot. But yeah, hopefully this video helped you at all. Like I said, if it did, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and this is all day any day one on the PS4. Have a good day, good night, and peace.